are we going to begin with this table because we are 5 minutes late already. Well, thank you for coming, and thank you, all of you. No? No? Okay, thank you for coming, and thank you for the 4 ladies here to come to this table about integration and engagement of women in urban development. A brief of the session is a question about how the arrival of the 4th industrial revolution that is characterized by a fusion of technologies is opening new possibilities to engage women in city planning, thus breaking down the idea that considers urban development as a neutral field and adding social sensitivity to ensure urban quality of living for the future. So one of the questions we put over the table is how do a gender perspective and the use of the ICT contribute to more inclusive urban transformation and the right to the city? For talking about how the technology is incorporating in a more equal city, we have, in order of talking, Mrs. Eva Fabri, who is since 2008 director of the European Center for Women and Technology. She's also a member of the steering committee of the International Task Force for Women and the ICT, and since 2012, member of Women and ICT Development, a Youth Lead International Forum. Second is going to speak Dr. Edna Pasher from Israel. I don't say that Eva Fabri is from Norway. Edna Pasher from Israel. He's founder and CEO of the consultant group Edna Pasher, PhD and Associates. Edna is member of the European Center for Women and Technology, and recently was a speaker at the European Celebration of Women in Computing. She's also the founder and chairperson of the Israel Smart Cities Institute. So the third speaker will be Mrs. Sri Husnaini Sofjan, from United States of America. She's a senior program administrator and strategist at Hairu Commission. Sri experience cover ICT, good governance, regional and global coordination of women networks and cities, managing and programming human settlements and gender equality project by United Nations agencies and governments. And the last speaker will be Chelsea Gauthier, from United States of America. Chelsea is the Associate Director of the Center for the Living City, a non-profit organization that provides portals for community engagement in our cities. With a background in urban planning and ballet, she believes in the power of small-scale intervention to make big impacts within a community. Well, thank you, all of you, to be here, and we're going to have a wide range of intervention. So, Eva, when you want.
Thank you. Dear participants of our panel, I am very honored and excited to make a brief presentation for you of the activities European Center for Women and Technology is involved in when it comes to the smart cities and gender agenda. Our organization, European Center for Women and Technology, has been founded in 2008, and we are a multi-stakeholder based leading platform in Europe for the Women in Technology agenda. We have national point of contacts in 28 countries all around Europe, so both EU member states and countries from wider Europe. And our aim is to measurably and significantly increase the number of women in the digital economy. When it comes to our research priorities, the Smart Cities agenda has had a key focus in the last 3 years, and one of the research projects that I would like to share with you, and we have just finalized it in October, 25th and 26th of October in Brussels, is the Seesmic Project, one of the last seventh framework program projects in line with the RRI Responsible Research and Innovation agenda aimed at increasing social innovation in cities and a special focus on more active involvement of diversity issues in social innovation agenda. The project has been carried out in collaboration with JPI Urban Europe, and I would like to stress that this is one of the first projects where a special gender action plan has been developed for 10 cities all around Europe, aiming at including and integrating more the gender perspective in city center and city development in general. The ultimate outcome of the project, apart from a gender action plan presented and partly implemented by the cities involved in the project, is furthermore a handbook and a sustainable organization under the framework of Urban Europe. You can also see a more broad presentation of the Seesmic Project outcomes in when visiting the Austrian national stand, as the project leader of Seesmic is from the Austrian Institute of Technology. This gender action plan developed by our European Center for Women and Technology is now being piloted and rolled out in several other countries also in Europe, and intimately linked to another initiative of the European Commission, which in fact will be presented in a broader context on the 23rd of November, that is next week in Brussels, when a manifesto for more active citizens development in Europe will be launched by the European Commission. This is under the framework of the so-called EIP-SCC initiative, European Innovation Partnership in Smart Cities and Communities. And it is the belief of the Commission that this can considerably contribute to integrating the gender aspect more into social innovation and city development issues in the European Commission during the coming years. I think this will be my initial presentation, and a more broader perspective of how we work with the Smart City and Gender Agenda will be now presented by my colleague, Dr. Edna Pascher. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. I'm very happy to be here. This is the fourth time that I'm presenting at the Smart Cities Barcelona event. But this time it's very special because we are going to talk about women and technology, women and smart cities, just as I did in Brussels, as Eva told you. Personally, since I did my PhD studies many, many years ago in a very pioneering program called Media Ecology, my passion was to look at the interface between technology and society. And this leads, of course, to looking as one of the pioneers in the world on knowledge cities, which later we called smart cities, which led me to establish the institute in Israel that is a not-for-profit and is looking to collaborate with anybody who is passionate about the subject all over the world. Of course, it was only natural to collaborate with the European Center for Women in Technology. As you know, Dr. Boyd Cohen, who was today on the stage and is, I believe, the leading expert on where this is all going, speaks about 3 generations of smart cities, and we are now in the 3rd stage, which is citizen co-creation. Now, if you co-create, you have to include everybody, of course. I have 3 stages of looking at this topic from my own experience. I have been a management consultant for 38 years now, and at the beginning, it seemed to me that when women enter the boardroom or the executive team in an organization, it's a cross-cultural issue because they talk very differently for men. And so we have to teach women how to overcome this cross-cultural gap and sometimes just tell them that in Rome you have to behave like Romans, which means that if you want to be the only lady on the executive team, you have to talk like the gentleman. Then I moved forward and I said, no, we have something special to bring to the table when we go into the leading teams of organizations and communities. And what you see in the picture is a child, one of our grandchildren. And I think that there is a lot of inspiration to take from mothers and grandmothers how to lead successful organizations as communities, because as women, we have always been doing this. So this is on our website, very unique to inspire how organizations learn healthy behavior of families. And then I went even one step further in my intellectual journey on the issue, and this is where I am now. I believe that we have a competitive edge over the gentlemen. I'm very happy that we have some in the room. I would like to thank specifically my friend Giorgio Priester, who is sitting here, and he's leading the Major Cities Institute in Europe, and we collaborate as well. Of course, we have a competitive advantage. When everybody speaks about ecosystems and collaborations, they don't know how to do that. Mostly the boys and the men, gentlemen, later on, they grow in a very competitive type of behavior. Now, the whole idea that even competitors can collaborate is so strange to them. We understand that. We understand that we can do things together, to compete and collaborate at the same time, to have a career and a family at the same time. So I think that we have a very special, unique added value to bring to the table of smart cities and communities. Now, the technology that I told you before is a great enabler for that. And if we look here, we see that the challenges that the cities are creating for us is so huge. I will not go into all of the stages, but how does all of that affect women, and how can technology help us is really the key issue that we cope with when we speak about gender and the smart cities. Some of the challenges of women in smart cities, for example, social inclusion. We are not always included so easily. One of the missions of ECWT, Eva Fabry described, is to have more girls go into engineering, go into computing, go into all of the future technology-driven professions. We are not there. It's not enough. Another one, employment in high tech. We need to be employed there to reach top positions. We are doing it, but slowly, slowly. We need to see ourselves engaged, usually, especially career ladies. When we try to combine family and career, we don't have enough time to do volunteer work as citizens in the city. That's a big challenge. How do we involve mothers, young mothers, who try to combine raising the family and growing their career? And then well-being. What we found out in Brussels, in the conference that we had in April about women in computing, celebrating women in computing, we found out that most of the money in pharmaceutical, for example, is spent on typical male diseases and not as much on typical women's diseases. And it seems that men and women have different issues when it comes to health. We don't need to go deeper into that. There are countries who are doing it well. I just brought a slide, and as I see that my time goes by, I won't stick with it, but go look at that, and you will see the countries who lead in the world in engaging women and bridging the gap that I was describing. Of course, there is added value if we integrate the women in doing what we call sensitive planning. And there are plenty of opportunities there. I will go forward to talk about specific opportunities which we are going to explore later today at 2 o'clock in the Agora. You are all invited. We are going not just to talk about it, but to do it. I chose 2 great opportunities for us with a lot of funding at the EU. Giorgio and I always look at opportunities to find fundings for what we believe in on smart cities. And the deadlines are quite feasible. One is for the 7th of March, and the other one is for the 14th of February. We can still co-create consortia and write proposals together to get funding for these 2 calls. They have very high potential, specifically for gender perspectives. By the way, all of the EU projects, all of the EU call for papers, the Horizons 2020 is the name for the program now, has a unique call for the gender perspective. And sometimes people do not get the funding just because they didn't address this issue. So we are here to help. These are the examples that I just described. Yes, we do believe in doing it together, as one of the circles show here, and as we'll do today in the Knowledge Cafe. Here you have 2 examples of what we do in Tel Aviv. One is a special hub for ladies who do startups, and the other one is a group of ladies from an organization that is very well known, the graduates of our 8 to 100, which is the #1 technology school of startups in Israel, how they help young women to do it. And we have some very impressive results as well. These are real leading ladies in Israel that inspire all of us. These are the 4 leading banks in Israel, and they are all run by women. The one on the top left, Karnit Flug, is the head of our central bank, Bank of Israel, and I'm very happy to have been working with her as well. So we can reach the top. We just need to decide that we want to do that, and we can start with the Knowledge Cafe this afternoon, 2 o'clock, to go look for funding for R&D projects. Thank you very much, and I leave the floor.
Thank you. Sini?
Very good morning. I think it's still morning. Oh, it's afternoon. Okay. Thank you for joining us in this session. I think Eva and Edna has laid out most of the clarification and justification about why women needs to be part of the urban development process. But I think, we need not to do justification, actually, because women in most cities, we make up at least 50% of the population, at least. In some cases, it's more than that, yeah? And also, women are not weak beings. We are strong. We are partners of development. We are agents of change. We are not beneficiaries. I just want to make sure that we understand that in this session, yeah? So, let's see. How do I do this? Okay. So, when we talk about smart cities, when we talk about the use of technology and all that, what is the global policy that we use for our base? Recently, or last year, the United Nations come up and member states of the United Nations adopt the Sustainable Development Goals. The Sustainable Development Goals has 17 goals. Goal number 5 is specifically talk about gender equality. Goal number 11 is about sustainable cities and human settlement. So this is the integration. And then on top of that, recently, last month, the Habitat 3 conference, the UN conference, the 3rd UN conference on housing and sustainable urban development adopted the new urban agenda. In the new urban agenda, smart cities was mentioned several times as part of means of implementation. And the wording on gender-responsive sustainable planning, gender-responsive everything, gender-responsive women empowerment, it's all part of that document. So now we want to implement. Some cities have already come up and talk about smart cities. Now, smart cities, when we talk about smart cities, it's not about the city being smart. It's the people inside there need to be smart. Men and women need to be smart. And how do we then use that, our smart, our brain, to actually make our cities sustainable and, a place where we can call our home, because our cities is actually our home nowadays, yeah? And so for women, there are 3 cross-cutting themes or priority areas to ensure women empowerment and gender-responsive practices in urban development. First of all, women's participation in policy, planning, and budgeting. Edna mentioned about, women being leadership and things like that. But if you look at the governance of the cities, how many women actually sit on top of the governance? How many women mayors? Or how many women councillors? If we have women councillors, the women councillors normally get, the portfolio of health, family, hardly they get this portfolio of tender, of managing the finance, of the budget and things like that, yeah? And so encouraging women's participation, women's really in the policy making and budgeting process is very important. Secondly is government accountability to women. So women also pay taxes. And many of the women now actually earn more sometimes than men. So we actually pay a lot of more taxes, yeah? So how do we get back that? You know, so gender responsive budgeting is one of the key to actually hold government accountable. And I come from Malaysia, and in Malaysia, in Penang, the state of Penang have, started the gender responsive budgeting with their 2 municipalities there. And it's in their 4th year, and they are institutionalizing it. It's not just a project anymore, it's institutionalizing. And it's both the state government and the municipality themselves are putting it together. And they are trying to use ICT, but I'll go into the part about the gender gap in terms of the technology, yeah? The third area is critical knowledge and information required to address women's need. Or, well, when we talk about women, it's not just ourselves. When women talk about development, talk about what we need, is actually for our family, for our community. So you will see that I come from Huairou Commission, and our tagline is Women, Homes, and Community. Yeah, so we always think about the big picture, about the whole family, about the community. It's not just ourselves. So when we talk about technology, technology is not alien. Technology should be the enabling environment, bringing an environment to enable us to do more, to do good, to serve the purpose of the humanity, and not, on a silo by itself and feel good that I have innovated this. But, what is the impact? What is the things that can bring benefit? What is the change that technology brings to the human being? So, so for women, to participate in the development process, and this particular session we talk about urban development, we talk about the need to access to, and capacity building in using the appropriate technology. There is still a gender gap there. If we look at the gender gap report, there is a digital gender gap report about women using technology. So women accessing information and then using that information to disseminate the information for decision making is very important. And then using ICT to organize, to proactively participate and input, as well as feedback into development policy and program. So many women, I come from still a developing country, and Huairou Commission works in 40 countries, mostly developing and underdeveloped countries. Many of our women would probably have smartphone. So that is a hardware. But there is a gap whereby they don't have the data access, because data access or getting the link to the internet is still expensive in this country. It's not affordable. So they have this WhatsApp application, yeah, in their phone. But unless they have access to data, they cannot use the WhatsApp. So it's just, communication, regular communication. And still, they are very calculative about how much, because these women are poor and they don't have much resources. And if they have access to internet at home, who usually get to use it more? Their husband, their son, their children. They always give to other people first. Women, that's the nature of women, So these are some of the things that we still have to, look into and work together. And I'm glad about the proposal or, possible consortium that we could work together that Eva and Edna mentioned. Now, I just want to share one example about how technology can be used, and still the accessibility of this technology is also still limited. Yeah, this is what we call the safety pin. It's an application to use for safety audit, where it has 9 parameters that contribute together to the perception of safety. Because safety is very important, not only for women but for everybody in the community, men, women, young boys, young girls, and even older people. This application is now being tested and used in several of the United Nations projects with UN Women and also UN Habitat. And there is a possibility that this can be an application that is free, that is, everybody can use. But again, the question is about accessing that bandwidth to use it, and then to feed back to the local government who are responsible for planning transportation routes and planning the safety and providing transportation to the people. I'll stop there right now. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you. Chelsea?
Hello. My name is Chelsea Gauthier, and I'm here today as a representative in the fight for all girls and young women whose voices are diminished or silenced, for those who are affected by misogynistic behaviors and attitudes prevalent in our societies today, and for those who are curious, eager, or inspired to engage and take actions in the communities that they care about. But most of all, I'm here today as a citizen in this global community who will share the wisdom that I've learned from Troop 496, the Muslim Girl Scouts of Utah, whose voices have shaped an empathic narrative for the future of women's roles in urban development. I work as the Associate Director for a nonprofit organization, the Center for the Living City. We were founded in 2005 with the support of Jane Jacobs, and our work is to create portals for community engagement. One critical component of our work is to amplify the voices of locals in the design of their cities. My presentation today focuses on the importance of including girls and young women as active participants in our communities. We have to create these initiatives to invite them to the table. We have to have initiatives that are supportive, yet have an adaptable framework for place-based community engagement, so that we can drive our communities to be, and our cities to become more socially just, sustainable, and successful. Our director, Stephen Goldsmith, argues that the greatest problem of our time is not climate change, but it's misogyny and the patterns of abuse that are seen in our cities. I wholeheartedly agree with this. Just imagine for a minute, if we have all of the roles of women and their voices to the table, imagine what problems we could solve. If we don't include the women's voices, we will continue to marginalize and diminish a key informant for solving the urgent problems of our time. These complexities of cities require the wisdom to prioritize urban interventions. This wisdom has to include all genders to address the multifaceted dynamics of city life. Misogyny is a piece of this complexity, and we see it through patterns of abuse in our cities, in the abuse of women, in the abuse of water and land. This past week, we experienced a lot of this marginalization when we experienced the election of Donald Trump. Now is not the time to keep silent, but to stand up in action. We have the opportunity to make a difference. We can become inspired by the broad impacts of women like Jane Jacobs and Malala. Numerous girls have role models that can shape the new narrative and shape their voices for the future. Jane Jacobs herself was a Girl Scout. She learned in the Girl Scouts that girls and women can have the power to be and do anything that they want. The Girl Scouts instilled principles that set the foundation for Jane's love of writing, her curiosity, her observation, and her willingness for community service. This past spring, we piloted a program with Girl Scouts Troop 496, the Muslim Girl Scouts of Utah, on a patch project to explore the power of observation and their role within cities. This program was designed to introduce girls to Jane Jacobs' iconic thinking, to speak truth to power, and provide these girls and young women with the tools to amplify their voices. Using Glenna Lang's book, Genius of Common Sense, as a point of departure, the girls were able to shape their narratives and explore their cities. To jumpstart the conversations, a field guide developed by the author was used to promote observation and discussion. The girls were invited to propose interventions to preserve, heal, or transform their places. In each case, their discoveries along the way opened pathways for girls to develop their own voices as well as the vocabulary and urbanism. After a series of investigations in their city life, they crafted their responses and ideas for the future by organizing Jane Jacobs Walks. The girls invited and led these walks with other local youth. They questioned design flaws. They urged others to not just accept what's around them, to always be curious, raw, and speak their mind. One of the walks, they decided that they needed to ban smartphones. They asked everyone to turn their phones off. They realized how disconnected they were becoming from observing their cities and how they actually worked because they were always connected to the World Wide Web. During these walks, one of the 7th grade Girl Scouts voiced her opinion to ensure the future health of the environment in our cities by holistically looking at the urban ecological framework and to make it more beautiful. She wants to make them more beautiful by addressing this issue through uniting the voices of young women around the world. So then the next step the girls took was brainstorming ways to reach out further, and they decided to use social media as a tool for this departure, but only as a tool to log on and then to log off. The girls created an Instagram account, the Jane Jacobs Patch. They use other social media platforms such as Snapchat and WhatsApp and Skype. These tools of our time can assist us, but they cannot make a city smart. Only people can be smart, and we have to make sure we engage them in ways that show their wisdom. They're now taking steps to reach out to other Girl Scouts and Girl Guides around the world. They want to interact with one another through the power of social media and to catalyze change in their urban development. To do so, we currently have a Jane Jacobs Fellowship open that's closing on this coming Monday, where we are going to invite participants to look at how we can shape their role in our cities. We will further do this by expanding the Patch program to Girl Scouts and Girl Guide communities around the world. People need cities, and cities need people. To have smart cities, we must have wise citizens informing our urban development visions, processes, and interventions to address these patterns of abuse in our cities. To have smart cities, we need to have smart investments to ensure inclusive, sustainable, and place-based urban development initiatives. The smart investment is in our youth, and in particular, girls and young women. We must not go into a city environment with preset notions of how things are supposed to work. Instead, we must enter a space with an open mind and seek to observe things as they actually are. Jane Jacobs said the best measure of the health of a city was how it worked at the street level. So it is our role to bring girls and young women to the table in our daily lives to develop their voices and leadership skills. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there any question? Yes? One there? Okay. Yes, two. Okay. Could you open the light in the room, maybe? ¿Se puede prender la luz, no? Es como difícil ver quién pregunta.
And also if the person putting the question could say from where.
Buenas tardes.
Came here. Ah, espera, que no se está escuchando nada. ¿Si estás hablando o no? Que no veo nada.
Buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Victoria Vargas. Yo vengo de Colombia, de un pueblo muy pequeñito que se llama...
Espera un momentito, que se pongan...
Ok.
creo que es el 1, el canal 1.
El 1.
¿Es the one channel? Yes. Ok, vale.
¿Ok?
Ujú.
Buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Victoria Vargas, yo vengo de Colombia, un pueblo muy pequeñito al sur que se llama Orito Putumayo. Como se podrán dar cuenta, Orito es un pueblo aún relegado de muchísimas cosas, pues está muy lejos de llegar a ser aún una ciudad inteligente, pero nuestro alcalde está trabajando para cambiar la mentalidad en muchísimos aspectos. Tenemos un problema grande y es un tema machista que impide que las niñas y las mujeres aspiren incluso a estudiar. Yo llegué de una ciudad diferente a trabajar allí y nos hemos dado cuenta que poder hacer inclusión y equidad de género ha sido complicado. Me gusta todo lo que ustedes han dicho, ustedes son mujeres inspiradoras, créanme, las felicito. Yo he prestado atención a todo lo que ustedes han dicho y aprovecho que estoy con un grupo de alcaldes de Colombia, de ciudades pequeñas, en donde me gustaría que les dijeran ustedes también que es muy importante en este momento también tener voluntad política para poder hacer inclusión. Muchas mujeres quieren adentrarse en estos temas, en trabajar y estudiar. Estudiar es muy complicado para las mujeres en Orito Putumayo, es muy complicado. Y nosotros hemos trabajado para que muchas de estas niñas se inspiren a que puedan hacer algo diferente, pero aún es complicado porque el medio no lo permite. Entonces, me gustaría que ustedes que están aquí nos explicaran la importancia de los gobiernos y de las entidades territoriales en cabeza de los alcaldes para que hagan inclusión, equidad de género, no solamente el tema de mujeres, temas también LGBT que son muy importantes. Entonces, nos encantaría o me encantaría conocer pues, o saber, yo sé que ustedes nos lo han dicho en toda la conferencia, pero me gustaría que se hiciera claridad y énfasis en el tema de inclusión y equidad femenina en todos los temas, en temas de gobiernos, en temas de inspirar a las niñas a que estudien, porque nuestras niñas no están saliendo a estudiar, no quieren estudiar, no quieren hacerlo, y eso es porque el medio no se los permite, no las inspira. Muchísimas gracias.
Gracias a ti. Will we make a round of question and later you answer? ¿Había otra? Aquí, si quieres, if you can go there.
Hello, good morning. Thank you. My name is Francisco. I'm coming from the University of Girona. I'm a student there. I want to thank you so much for your amazing speeches. I think it's very sad that this room is almost empty, and thank you for bringing out to our attention the importance of women and technology and connecting it to smart cities. You mentioned the fact about data access in developing countries, and I think it might be useful to consider the tool, a new invention which is called ChatSim, which allows to to use WhatsApp and Messenger all around the world. So you might want to keep that into consideration when you talk about data access and make access more available to women and to all people in developing countries. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other question, or we answer? Okay, here.
Yes, I'm Giorgio Pista. I'm from Italy. I was mentioned by Edna, thank you. And Let me, well, I don't have really a question, but, well, as my young age, you can see I've got many experiences in working with women, and I got four bosses in my life. One was my mother, then my wife, and then two of my bosses at work, which were really the best ones. Now, my opinion is that there is no difference. We can work with women very well as with men. At the same time, I am wondering, because in some countries, and I've participated in many of these sessions. There are those in also in many companies, the so-called equal opportunities sessions. I participated in Italy and participated in the United States for the same organization, but for a different environment. And I can tell you, my experience is that women equal opportunities are very different, even in countries that could be considered as evolved countries like Italy and the United States. And I can imagine that in Malaysia it's much more different, as in Colombia and so on. So so it's a wide range of complicated matters that are mainly linked to local habits on one hand. And on the other hand, I must say the women that I've been working with at work were really very talented women, and well, I must say respect was completely given without any problem. So it's natural. Is it the only way for women to progress, or there is a need for equal opportunities also? I don't know. I'm asking you.
Okay. Well, maybe we can make a first round of answer here. Who wants to begin? You?
Thank you. I will start with the last one because I remember it and because it's a very important one. We do need affirmative action for women.
Yeah.
I think that some of us who have made it, and I would like to thank my husband who is sitting here, without whom I would have never made it. But I know that it's a very unique luck that I had. But most women, even if they are very talented, if they want to combine family and career, if they don't want to give up family life, I didn't want to give up family life. So I have 3 children, 3 degrees. I'm very lucky, and it's only because I collaborated with a very good husband. But mostly this is not the case. In Brussels, in the conference led by Eva Fabry of the ECWT, we heard that many women who are doing careers in high-tech companies had to give up their family life. That's not fair. I think that organizations need to have kindergarten and child daycare and all kind of support so that women can contribute. And this is something that is lacking. The other question that I think I heard from the lady in Colombia, I would like to respond shortly to that one. I have found out that the best age of men to collaborate with for the benefit of women is when they have young girls and they are worried about them. They are worried about their daughters, about what happens to them at schools, what happens to them in the street, what happens to them on the campus. This is when we have to catch them, because then it's their problem. I can tell you that even in the IDF, the Israel Defense Forces, where women and men serve together, there is a need for affirmative action, all kind of support. And when the head of this unit, the general who is in charge of that, asked me many years ago what she needs to do, I told her, go look for those generals who are fathers, catch them, they will help you. We need to collaborate with men if we want to succeed. We cannot do it on our own. So these are the questions that I remember.
Thank you, Edna. Any other want to say something? Okay, you have there. I think that's
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to respond briefly to the last question regarding the equal opportunity for women and men in societies. I know my experience in the United States, oftentimes society has made me feel like I have to have my voice tamed, that I can't really speak out, that it's against social norms. I think that needs to be changed, and I think that our educational systems need to be more open to hearing out women and young girls and really encouraging them to speak their mind. And I agree with what's been saying that we need the affirmative action for women.
Thank you.
I agree with the affirmative action is still needed in many cases. Yeah, and also we have to think and to recognize that women is not just one group. There are intersectionalities. Women from poor, rich, and then even the rich women, for example, they are all middle-aged, able, disabled, and there are many. And so when we look into that these are some of the things that sometimes hinder us to participate in a larger community and in the society. And the other thing that I think I want to challenge all of us, especially the industrial leaders here, how many of the MNCs, multinational corporations, or leading national corporation have childcare? This is something that is still being fought. That women are fighting. Not only women, but some men are fighting for it also. Because like Edna says, men who have young children will also think, hey, I want my wife to also have a career. But who will take care of my children? And just what I'm familiar is the women's labor participation. And in Malaysia, we have a study that the women labor participation dropped for women in the age of 35. That's when they all get into a family life. And these are potential women. They are the smart women. In Malaysia, we have women who graduated. Women graduated. We have more female students in the university now. That the affirmative action is reversed to the male, to get more male students. Because if we just base on result from high school, then 80% or 85% of the seat in universities, in public universities in Malaysia, will be filled by female students. So we have, they have to lower the qualification, lower the requirement for male students to come to the university. But when it comes to their labor participation, it has dropped. So when we talk about smart city, we have to think about, what is a smart thing for the city to do so that both men and women can participate and contribute, I think.
Thank you. I think one question. We have only 1 minute. Please be short.
Okay, my name is Katrin. I'm from Germany, and I have a bit of a comment. I'm a younger generation, 1990, and I think so far I experience much equality. And I think, in my opinion, if we want to focus on gender equality, we should consider like the whole entirety of a family and not just the woman. So because women are very different, men are very different, and sometimes maybe the man wants to work a little bit less and the woman wants to work more. So we should not just think about it how to support the woman. We need to think about how to support both genders. We should not separate anymore.
Well,
I don't know if you want to comment on this.
maybe still we are in a I don't know, under position than men, so we still need special laws and special help for women because we are not in the same position. I don't know if you want to say something to close. If not, okay, I want to also to say something. Yes. Sorry.
When I was young, your age, I thought that it's not important to have affirmative action, to have special support for women. Because I was arrogant and I thought, here, I made it, so why do we need special support for that? But that's not the case.
Yeah.
Actually, statistics show in our country and in other countries that the number of women who go for executive positions in high tech is lowering, is going down. And it's because they don't want to give up family life. So there is a reason to be worried about it. I can say that in a project that we did with the Tel Aviv municipality a few years ago, when Tel Aviv had only old people staying in it because it was too expensive and because there wasn't enough support for young families, one of the issues was exactly what you talked about, to support young families. And yes, I agree, sometimes it's women and sometimes it's men that want to stay at home and take care. But still we are at the stage in the evolution of equality for women where we have to look at that. The high tech is failing us. There is a drop down in how we are making it. It's a big issue, and it was raised in the ECWT in Brussels, and we are going to focus on that. So there is a long way to go, I believe so.
Let's work together. So thank you very much. We have to close the session. Thank you, all of you, for some inspiring intervention, and thank you all you for being there. Thank you.